evening, everyone. I'm delighted to have been given this opportunity to formally introduce Abhishek sir, with whom I've worked since the past 2 years of my career. He's not only an expertise in tax laws, but also holds a great passion in the subject. Having authored more than a dozen of books with Taxman and LexisNexis publications on GST, service tax, central excise, and foreign trade policy, he holds the distinction of being the first author in the country to have been published with Taxman publications. He's a great lawyer and has approximately 200 interesting writ petitions to his credit argued by him in diverse sectors across various courts in the country. He has been recognized for his experience and expertise by the Economic Times 40 Under 40. He is also a recipient of the prestigious World Tax Award and International Tax Review Award. He is truly a constitutional expert for tax and fiscal issues, and a well-known name amongst various government authorities and courts. Along with his legal practice, research, and scholarship, Mr. Rastogi is a prolific speaker and regularly features on prime business news channels like ET News, CNBC, and Z Business. Today, we are certainly very fortunate to have him as our respected chief guest, and he would be discussing the impact of the union budget, indirect taxation, along with direct taxation in cryptocurrency and rupee digitalization. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Aarti. And I would want to thank both Aarti and Praveenji, who have been stellar in this profession and have always added value to litigation services which we've been providing in Punjab and Haryana. A lot of people asked me when I tell them about my accomplishments that you're too young to achieve all this. And I feel that if you are too good, you're never too young. And that's the message to, I think, to all our young Rotarians, that, you know, it is the experience which we gain from our elders. And this is a great platform, and we must. But I think always have that confidence wherein even if you're young, your dreams must be high. If Sachin Tendulkar would not have dreamt to play in Indian cricket team when he was 16, he would have never played that. So I think we must always remember that, and of course, acknowledge God, society, and all our friends who have helped us. So I think with that background, I would straight away come to the topic. Very interestingly, globally, what is happening? Globally, if you see, there is today a rat race of technology advancement, artificial intelligence. Who would have thought 25 years back the transfer of data, communication, these virtual meetings, etc., would have happened with so much of ease? But I think the credit goes to technology. In my various interactions with Nirmala ji, and of course, I used to interact very closely with Jaitley ji and now with Piyush Goyal ji and all of the senior leadership, I always give them the feedback that as far as technology is concerned, we must be there at the top of the chart when it comes to technology. And there were a lot of debates that what must happen to cryptocurrencies, what must happen to digital virtual assets, and should India have the virtual currency as well? So I think if India has to do globally well, then we can't miss the technological advancement. And that's, I think, somewhere very categorically now noted by a lot of these parliamentarians who would want to give quite emphasis on this technology. And that's why if we talk about new age, new India, young India, we need to ensure that technology rollout is optimum. And that's why this budget we saw announcements with respect to auction of 5G. We also observe proposals to create audio visual gaming and comic promotion task force. So these were the things which were never initially thought of, but now these are on the cards. The other related topic was, what do you do with cryptocurrencies? And when you talk about these cryptocurrencies, the first thing which comes to our mind is Bitcoin. But I think it is important for us today to understand what these cryptocurrencies are, what these non-fungible tokens are. And once we understand the concept, it will be easy for us to understand even the tax implications or otherwise. So what is this cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, etc., etc.? All of these virtual assets are based on a blockchain technology. So what happens, and today we know that the country faces lakhs of cases with respect to property disputes. Who was the real owner? When was it transferred? Was it leased? Ancestral lineage, ascendant, descendant, and so on and so forth. Now you apply blockchain to this. So which means if we apply blockchain technology to real estate, there will be a technology to assist us, to let us know that who was the first owner, who's the last owner, what all hands this property has passed. Was it a sale transaction, lease transaction, gift, inheritance, and so on and so forth. And it could be used for various other purposes, like, for example, health. The entire health record, which could be used by insurance companies. So this is blockchain. So quite understandably and very clear, we want to promote blockchain technology for sure. Blockchain will become a big disruptor in the days to come. And why I say that as a disruptor? Because the traditional ways of doing businesses will change once this blockchain technology comes in. We will have distributed ledger technology, wherein several people working on same data could change or address a lot of these things together at the same time. So coming back to these cryptocurrencies, what are these different types of cryptocurrencies? So there could be a public cryptocurrency like a Bitcoin, in which everybody could invest. There could be a private cryptocurrency, which could be by an organization. Say Reliance comes out with a cryptocurrency. Or there could be a permission or consortium, two people coming together. Indian government may come up with Adani to have some sort of cryptocurrency. So there could be different models which are globally prevalent today. Now, it is equally important to understand that who are the participants. So there could be coin inventors, such as Facebook for Libra. Facebook could come, who's an inventor. Then there would be miners, these people who have mines based on arithmetic formula to mine these cryptocurrencies. Then there could be nodes, computing terminals to run software. There will, of course, be exchanges where you could buy and sell. Hash power rental companies, which would provide electricity, because electricity generation is very, very essential. Then there could be utility companies that issue utility tokens, the middle coins to use fiat currency. Casual consumers, wallet providers, because the crypto goes into a wallet. Coin offerers, for example, WazirX, they give coins on registration. The budget this year has basically announced only certain measures by including cryptocurrency under the Income Tax Act. This is just the beginning. We may, in the days ahead, will have to examine the business, go into details of each of these transactions in business, and understand that what could be the tax implications on such different set of transactions. Now, before I go to the tax implications, let's understand what are these non-fungible tokens. Very interesting. We have seen movies like Bubbly and Bunty, Taj Mahal getting sold, River Ganga getting sold, and so on and so forth. That's exactly what will happen through NFTs. And let me give you some 3 examples. So let's say there is one painting, and let's say that painting is worth $10 million. I want to throw a birthday party wherein I would get the privilege to take my 20 friends to get a view of that painting, just like being very close to that painting. So I get access to that painting or to that gallery. Now, which means if I buy an NFT, then NFT may give me certain rights of access. So for example, in this case of a painting, I may get an access if I hold an NFT to take my friends, 4 friends, 20 friends, or whatever, at a agreed frequency in a year. So I am not the owner of that painting, but I get the access to that painting. So in a way, I am also part of a legal ownership there. And the value of the painting may increase or decrease as the value of any asset would increase or decrease. And hence what will happen is that my value of that virtual asset may increase or decrease, but I will always have that right to access. Now you replicate this example to a house in Miami. And I have a dream to, let's say, buy a house in Miami. And I know for a fact that I love beaches. I would go to Miami only for once a year for 7 days. Now, if you have that non-fungible token, you become a legal owner of that house to the extent of that right which you derive out of that NFTs. So these will be new ways of giving right to access, ownerships to a lot of these expensive things, and hence NFTs will come into play. So now let's come to Taj Mahal. Let's say government of UP assigns a value of that Taj Mahal and says that we want to issue 1 lakh NFTs. And that value could be 10,000, 1 lakh, or whatever. And they collect 1 trillion rupees or several trillion rupees by selling that NFTs, by which you become an owner of Taj Mahal. And by being an owner, you get a special right. For example, they may say that this Saturday or any Saturday, only NFT holders could access Taj Mahal, or there will be a special gate from which they could enter, and so on and so forth. So these are what NFTs are, and I think in the days ahead, there'll be smart contracts. Lawyers will not be required. It will be all done through artificial intelligence. You feed in certain data, you feed in certain information, and perhaps there'll be automatic systems to draft these smart contracts. So these will be self-executing contracts based on computer protocol with use of blockchain again. So automated lease rental could be one example. You know all parameters of the lessor, all parameters of the lessee. The computer does that, and the agreement gets generated. The transactions get settled. So these are all very interesting aspects. Now, what has happened this budget? The important announcement which happened this budget is that there will be tax on virtual assets. And a lot of people thereafter is asking, is this legal? Is dealing in virtual assets legal? Is dealing in cryptocurrencies, bitcoins, etc. has become legal by way of this announcement? And we'll come to that later. So the question today is that what must be the tax rate on these cryptocurrencies, etc., etc. And the budget announcement has, for the first time, defined what are these virtual digital assets. And they are very clearly saying that these assets will be subject to 30% tax, 1% TDS, and so on and so forth. And I think most of the people will not have a problem, because people who are doing big time business in virtual assets will in any case be in 30% bracket. In any case, I think below 30% today, hardly there is any amount. So most of these people would be in 30%. 1% TDS has been announced, which is to track the movement of these assets and so on and so forth, the sale transaction of these assets and so on and so forth. But what is important is that when they have defined these crypto assets, the definition is so wide. It not only includes non-fungible tokens, etc., etc., but has specifically kept any currency out of its purview, which is a separate point. But a lot of other things, that what happens to the airline miles. Airline miles also get covered by these definition, loyalty programs, your hotel miles, credit card points, all of that, I think, unintentionally gets covered by this wide definition, which needs to be looked into. Now, there were certain other aspects also which were announced, that what happens if a father gifts these cryptocurrencies by way of will or otherwise to his children. And the announcements broadly provide that there may be a tax on gifting of these assets. What happens in case these are sold, lost due to technology error or cyber crimes? You would not get the benefit of deduction when it is sold. So clearly, I think the intention of the government is to discourage people to get into these transactions, especially the retail investors, because the government also wants to be very, very conservative. They do not want any bloodbath, which we have seen how it has happened in the financial sector in 90s. Because at the end of the day, it can also be argued from the other side that there is actually no value to these assets. And what happens if there is a bloodbath and the price crash? The people will say that the government did not take appropriate measures or action. So I think government wants to be a little safe from that perspective. Then there are other questions, that how would you determine the cost of acquisition? Would you apply the first in, first out method, or the last in, first out method? Or will there be any set off of the profits and gains from crypto assets with other heads of income? So all of these are interesting questions. Whether these will be capital gains, whether capital gains, which is the surcharge on capital gains, which is applicable at 15%, will that be applicable on these cryptos as well? So I think there are a lot of questions which have come now. Similarly, there are questions that what happens to the taxing provisions with respect to these mining companies which are mining. And also the question arises is that if these are intangible assets or intangibles for income tax purposes, what happens for GST? Whether there will be GST as well. And the intention of the government looks like, because they also have to collect 1 trillion every month from GST, they're saying, yes, there will be GST as well. Now, in that run, they're forgetting that crypto assets could be very well argued to be neither goods nor services, because these represent the monetary value for any currency, or these could be actionable claims. And if that is the situation, how can there be GST on actionable claims? Because actionable claims are specifically excluded from the purview of GST. The related question would be that how would you value? If I have Bitcoin and I'm trading Bitcoin with money, Indian rupee or US dollars, then there is a specific value. But if I'm trading Bitcoin with Ethereum, then how do you determine the value, both for the direct tax purposes and for applicability of GST? So I think in a way, there are more questions today which have come up. To reach to the most important aspect, which a lot of people asked me, that is cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, etc., by these budget announcements, have they become legal? And the answer is like this. The government has announced on the taxation of virtual assets, digital virtual assets. But where has the government said that this is legal? There will be, and this is very interesting, because there will be a tax even on prostitution. So which means that prostitution is legal. There would be a tax even on kidnapping, ransom, dacoity, etc., etc. These are all illegal activities as per some regulation, but still are taxed. For cryptocurrency, now there is a mechanism to tax them, but which does not mean that the government is saying that these are legal transactions. The legality of these transactions would come through a separate act. And in that, we will have to read between the lines and see the fine print that what all is legal. In what way you transact with these is legal. So for instance, if you transact with respect to these virtual currencies only through the approved exchanges, then perhaps it may be legal. But if you're dealing with cash, then it may not be. And we have seen that lot of criminal activities, drug abuse, human trafficking, ransom, has happened by way of these bribery. All of these have happened through use of these cryptocurrencies, because the money gets exchanged, or the value with respect to a particular asset gets exchanged through a wallet, and nobody knows how it is flowing, where it is flowing. There's no control. And once you have your wallet, you could go to that country where you have a bank account where it is legitimate, and you could transfer that through the banking channel there. So you go to Seychelles, you go to Mauritius, you go to these countries, Cayman Island, and there's no problem. So I think, to summarize, the Indian government will have to maintain a very fine balance. We cannot say that we do not want to encourage the technology. So blockchain technology comes into play for this and for various things. India will come out with its own digital money, that's for sure. In whatever interactions which I had with the top politicians and bureaucrats, I feel we are not very far from having Lakshmi as a digital currency. That will happen, must happen. But I think as far as cryptocurrencies are concerned, they must not be banned. And I'm a firm believer they must be regulated. Because if you ban these and I want to invest, as per the RBI guidelines, I can transfer certain amount to a bank account outside of India. I will transfer it to Singapore, London, New York, Mauritius, Seychelles, anywhere. Open a bank account and trade through those countries. So what we will lose is not only the income tax, because all of this accrues or deemed to accrue outside of India, but also the employment generation which happens, the exchanges which would have otherwise paid taxes here, both direct taxes and indirect taxes, all that goes for a toss. So I think maintaining fine balance is important. Having appropriate regulation is important. Getting it scrutinized, investigate is important. So I think that's what the endeavor of the government looks like at this moment. And we'll have to wait with a bated breath to see how these regulations come out. So that's basically is what I feel will happen. And happy to answer any questions if you have. Thank you so much for inviting me.
President Dispel, please unmute.
You're muted. Jaspalji, you're muted. Unmute yourself. You're still muted, sir. I think there's some technical glitch, Sukhji. Jaspalji, can you unmute yourself? We can't hear you at all.
Yeah, he's
Yes,
unmuted.
yes.
Yeah, that's better. That's better.
Yes, Dr. Dua, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks, Abhishek, for such a wonderful presentation and interaction, which is starting now. It's been such a pleasure listening to you in layman's language. Now, I have 2-3 issues here. Issue number one is that, it's inevitable. I completely agree with you that you can't deny the place cryptocurrencies have or NFTs have. No questions about that. My son stays in London. He very categorically told me that everybody in the West thinks that India is behind a decade by not doing what it should have done. And it's high time, as you rightly pointed out, that we better be there. Point number one. Point number two is that, a lot of gray market operations have been undertaken under cryptocurrencies. And I understand that it's password driven. And if you lose the password, you lose the money. Is that correct? And how do you take care of it? Point number one. Point number two is, recently this morning, we heard the news of North Korea stealing through hackers some $50 million in the last 1 year, and therefore they finance their nuclear armaments. So how does that happen? If I'm investing into cryptocurrencies, and if it gets stolen by hackers, what happens to us? And lastly and thirdly, very, very important, is that what do you think, how the intercountry transaction will take place with Lakshmi, the digital currency of India, which is, as you rightly said, is going to be coming forth? So these are my 3 small little questions for you.
I think very interesting aspect. I will take the question with respect to hacking first. Now, as far as this hacking is concerned, I think at the global level, the systems will actually devise a mechanism to track where the hacked currencies are shifted. And because the entire model is based on blockchain, you could actually track that. So imagine today what will happen with digital money. So today we have 2000 rupee currency, and every currency is identified because there is a number to it, right? Every currency has a unique number. Now imagine if that currency exchange hands, 100 hands in a month, and you could track that through a system. So ultimately, you will be able to track not only the exact GDP, but also all other practices. So to answer your concerns and questions, yes, hacking is a big challenge. Cyber crimes is a big challenge. Right now, we must not invest big time. In fact, we must not invest at all if we are in India, because if you remember that RBI circular to ban cryptocurrencies, I had challenged that RBI circular in Delhi High Court, which ultimately went to Supreme Court as well. So as we speak, cryptocurrencies are not legal in India.
Correct.
And hence, I would not recommend any of my clients or friends to invest in cryptocurrencies unless and until they have an account outside of India and they're doing it through legitimate banking channels. So that is point number one with respect to hacking and investment and so on and so forth. Of course, password remains a concern. So the best way is to record your password, not in the phone or that device from which you are basically operating. You must tell your password to someone who's trusted, who knows that password. And I think you must also tell your password to someone with whom you generally do not travel. So for example, if I travel with my wife and both of us are traveling and there is some emergency and both of us are not available, or something happens, God forbid, then the password is lost, the asset is lost.
Absolutely.
So you must always have that password with someone so that you reduce the risk. Now, when it comes to the risk of the password, compare that with physical currency. There could be a risk of losing that physical currency as well, right? So the risk is there in the physical currency as well. Of course, the risks are different, but will that risk be enough so that people will not invest in cryptocurrencies or would not deal in these digital assets, or if Lakshmi comes? I don't see. This will happen, but I think there has to be a fair balance. I mean, you could not have 90% of your assets in cryptocurrencies because that's not the right time now.
Right.
You could have invested like 7 years, 5 years back and played with, that little small investment by way of a gambling. So that would have been, still okay. Now, when it comes to your last question, that is very interesting and a difficult one as well. Now, what happens in all of these intercompany transactions today, we have different currencies for different countries, and all of this is regulated and monitored. So unless and until it's a very nominal value. So for example, if you want to carry $1,000 or $5,000, there are different monetary limits. So this is what you could carry, this is what you could have, this is what you could get from the exchange, and so on and so forth. So for all of these physical currencies today, there are complete regulations which are there. The problem with digital currency, till these systems across the world are synchronized, there'll be no monitoring at all. Because in my wallet, could have 10 Bitcoins. I want to go from Chandigarh to New York. I will go from Chandigarh to New York, do whatever with that money there, and perhaps come back doing whatever, right? And vice versa. Could get money from there and come here. And today we know for a fact that the transactions happen, fortunately or unfortunately, both through banking channels and in cash. So, which I think poses a bigger problem, and hence there is a need for regulating these. There's a need that system comes into place, and the entire system is based on blockchain. And if the system works well, I think everything is tracked. So I hope I have answered your.
No, thank you very much. Oh yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yes, Sukhjit Singh Gill.
Thank you, Abhishek ji. Very interesting view you have expressed on cryptocurrency. My first question is cryptocurrency regulated currently anywhere in the world? That's one. Two, is cryptocurrency taxed anywhere in the world right now? Three, is it anything like the Lehman Brothers scam, where things are being sold without any base and they could blow up any day? Fourth, how much share of my total assets should be in cryptocurrency? I think not more than 10%.
Yeah, I'll answer all four of these. Again, very interesting ones. And I think most of us will have such questions and thoughts. So I'll start with the last one. I think total share must be very less right now. In fact, if you are in a position to dispose of these assets, I think it is better to dispose of these assets, because in the short run, the prices will not substantially rise. The prices are already high, and we must wait for the government regulation, because if you see the current draft, that proposes to ban, but what I understand from a lot of discussions is that will not be banned, that will be regulated. But if you see the current draft, there'll be a panic in market. People will sell, and especially, for those transactions which are through the banking channels. What will happen to those if suddenly, these are banned, or let's say the government comes out with the regulation that you will have a time of 3 months to sell it off. The bigger problem will be who will buy it. So you will have to, in that case, sell it to someone who's outside of India. So I think it's better to play safe. I would not invest even my 10% hard-earned money into cryptos unless and until I have good presence outside of India through all legitimate banking channels. I have bought it, and the entire thing is kept in a wallet, which I could any day exchange outside of India. So I would suggest that. Now, as coming on to the scam, I don't see it's a scam, because let's understand that how this mining happens. When this mining, so what is gold? Today, why gold has a price? At the end of the day, it's also a piece of metal, right? But why that metal has price? That metal has price because it's not just the metal which you have in hand or you convert that into jewelry. That metal has a price because you invest substantial money to mine that as well. So there are reserves, there are assets, and you mine those, and there is a cost of mining as well, which gets added to that physical metal. Now, if you see cryptocurrencies, there are huge systems in computers, like computers as big as several rooms. And this mining happens based on arithmetic algorithm. And it requires so much generation of electricity that if you see countries like Spain, US, etc., these mining activities today happen where there are large fields, agricultural fields, barren land, and so on and so forth, because you need electricity generation. So you need solar power, because that other power you will not be able to afford because it will consume so much of electricity. Then you will need to have engineers or people with arithmetic background. Then you do this mining based on arithmetic algorithm. So which means in a nutshell, what happens is that there is a cost of mining each Bitcoin. And that's why when this mining happens, the miner also gets consideration in the form of coins when he's mining it for someone, right? So somebody would mine coins even for Bitcoin. So these people who are mining it get Bitcoins, and those coins then come in the chain. And these promoters are very particular because at the end of the day, it's the asset value, and that value has to survive. A lot of times, these assets which they have, they knock off or burn those assets so that the value in the market remains at current levels. So I think it may not be a scam per se, but yes, we must be very careful. We must be very cautious. We must invest only in known currencies. We must not invest in NFTs because NFTs could be a scam. So if you invest, let's say, in Eiffel Tower, you would know that that's coming from the government of France, so there is less risk, right? But if you invest in a house in Miami, which you have not seen, you would not know whether it's a fake NFT, what is the authenticity, and so on and so forth. So I think NFTs could be a little bit risky, but I think these known currencies, the value may not go up that significantly high the way it has gone up in last 5 years. But yes, but there is always a risk in these assets. Now, as far as your first question was concerned with respect to the regulations, there are regulations. Several federal governments are very seriously thinking. And the way India is coming out with the regulation, a lot of these countries are coming out with the regulations. And there are some countries which have some regulations as well, but not as robust as they should be. And as far as tax is concerned, most of the jurisdictions have imposed taxes on cryptocurrency. So it is not that the buy and sell of cryptos is escaping direct tax. There is direct tax on almost all such transactions which are happening in different jurisdictions. On indirect taxes, GST, yes, there is a lot of ambiguity because of a reason that whether they would qualify as actionable claims, or do they signify a monetary value for certain thing, and that's just exchange of money. So there are those questions in different jurisdictions with respect to VAT or GST, as these are called in different jurisdictions. So I hope I have answered.
Thank you. Got it.
Anybody else was?
Can I ask one question, Mr. President?
Yes, please.
Yeah, good evening. Of course, the talk was very enlightening, and really thank our esteemed speaker for that. I have two questions for you, sir. One is that, like in India, most of the population is still struggling to understand things like GST and other things. And for them to understand cryptocurrency and to actually use it, do you think it will make India not that advanced in technology as per other countries? Will it affect its standing as a big IT country or whatever you call it? And second thing I want to know is, right now what I understand from your talk is that it is mostly used as an investment. But like in the digital currency, do you think in the coming times we have something to do with the cryptocurrency in terms of our daily transactions or something like that?
Yeah, I think very interesting question. Again, I'll take the second one first. Now, as far as these transactions are concerned, let's see what is happening globally. Tesla, which is known for electric vehicles worldwide, announced that they are ready to accept cryptocurrencies for sale of a car. And if you see a lot of these global transactions, a lot of these global players, they have started accepting these digital currencies. Now, we do a lot of these transactions in India, let's say Uber, Swiggy, Zomato, Amazon, Grofers, and so on and so forth, right? Book My Show. Now, let's say if these players start using these digital currencies, right? Suddenly, people will use that. So the point which I want to say is that at some point of time, if regulated in the country through all appropriate regulations, this may happen that a lot of these sectors would be permitted to accept these currencies. Now, we'll have to see the vision of the Indian government, whether the Indian government would want to promote the usage of this at the very beginning only with respect to our Indian digital currency, Lakshmi, or whether we would want even Bitcoins, etc., to be used. So my feeling is this, that they would start initially only with respect to their digital currency. That's what I feel. Now, as far as your first question is concerned, of course, India is globally watched nation today when it comes to technology, IT hub, and so on and so forth, because we have some best brain in the country, right? And of course, a lot of Indians are doing research and development in the US and other countries. It's the Indian brain actually which is doing, whether it is medical science or IT or technology. So there is a lot of brain drain which is already happening. But India is being looked as a great IT hub because comparatively the cost is a little lesser here of any of such transactions which you intend to do here. But see what happens, the government wants to play it safe. And that's why if you would have observed that advertisement which used to come on TV, that you could buy it even for 100 rupees, right? I think Ranveer Singh or someone was there in that ad. You could buy cryptocurrencies or Bitcoins, etc. only for 100 rupees, right?
Correct.
Have you recently seen that ad in last 6 months?
No.
That has been banned. Because the government doesn't want people who are in the middle income group or lower middle income group to invest at all. That's why if you see the intention of the budget also, for example, if you are a housewife and you have no other income and you earn only out of these cryptocurrencies, right? Now, if you would have earned from any other source of income, then till 2.5 lakh rupees, there is no tax. And till 5 lakh rupees, there is very marginal 5% for 2,50,000 to 5 lakh rupees. But if you earn 2 lakh rupees or 1 lakh rupee or even 100 rupees in cryptocurrencies, there'll be a tax of 30%. And the reason is that the government want to discourage this to the lower income group or mid-size income group and so on and so forth, because if there'll be bloodbath, people will be on the streets. And the government doesn't want that unless and until there are proper regulations, mechanisms, and so on and so forth. So I think that's what the intention of the government is. But yes, you can't ignore blockchain technology. You may in some way come out with the regulation to regulate these crypto assets, but you can't say that, we would not want to have blockchain technology, and how much aggressively you use that will completely change the dynamics of doing business, from smart contracts to all of these land dispute, leasing contracts, health insurance, sale of motor vehicles. There'll be no need to track that how many hands the motor vehicle passed. There'll be complete linkage to the blockchain. So things like that are important. Technology is important. Of course, the government will implement that technology in more and more areas. But yes, they have to be very careful, and that's why they want to discourage the use at this stage.
Can I come in?
Thank you so much.
Yes, please.
Abhishek, I find that government has not played fair in their announcement. Please bear with me, because once you have said that it's not legal to trade in cryptocurrencies in India, how is it legal to collect taxes in India? Number one. So government has left one open, that okay, you trade, we keep the eyes closed, we collect taxes, that's short-term business. Second, you said you should invest only carefully overseas. Now, I don't see cryptocurrency as an asset in the liberalized scheme of RBI under the assets, which are 100 assets. Cryptocurrency is not there, right? So where do and how do you invest overseas? To my mind, government is just trying to collect taxes till they put their house in order. Maybe you say they want to save the small investors from this virus. But I think government is not fair in not advising people properly, because neither it stands here or there. It's absolutely illegal to trade it and tax cryptocurrencies in India. I agree, cryptocurrencies are a separate subject. Digital currency is a separate subject, which will be probably backed by a sovereign guarantee or something like that, if not gold. And that might have a value. We might come up with different variants and formats and derivatives of that currency as well. But blockchain technology is not in the domain of government. That's an idea. People have adopted it anyway. So we need to understand in three different pockets. But I want your opinion on my first point, if I'm wrong.
No, you are absolutely right. I would not say that you're wrong. But I think the government also has a lot of pressure of collecting taxes and improving the tax buoyancy.
No. Then we are allowing something which is illegal world over. You're driving your people to trade and you want to collect tax. It's like saying, I will close my eyes on drugs, but I will tax you.
Yeah. No, I largely agree with what you're saying. But it's like this, that if the transactions are happening, then why not tax? Till the time they're happening.
Why the transactions are happening?
No, but it's Abhishek, it's not illegal all over the world. That's incorrect.
No, we are talking about India.
No, it's not illegal all over the
world.
No. Even in India, see, today, what is India's position? Whether it is legal or not, today we have no clarity.
Correct.
Whether it will be legal from a particular date, we have no clarity. But as we speak, it's neither legal nor illegal because the trade happens. And as far as the RBI circular was concerned, to restrict banks for legitimate crypto assets, that has been struck down by Supreme Court.
No, Abhishek,
that's correct.
The domain of RBI is only on the banks. They can't go across that.
Yeah, exactly.
We know that is an unregulated thing. It is happening in front of our eyes. If income tax is inviting tax on that. It is recognizing that. You can't tax something which is not recognized, right? So I think government is just collecting taxes, but we are taking a huge risk. Dr. Dua, let me correct you that even if you want to invest overseas, if you want to do it from your NRA account or a national account, it's possible, but not from an Indian rupee account.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you.
Absolutely.
Because my son has invested small little sum from his London account.
Yes,
London
right.
account. Yes.
But lot of all these exchanges, Wazir and all, what they've got, got away from Supreme Court. Now they are not advising people not to do that, right? They are inviting Indians to invest rupees in this, and that's all illegal. And government is solid.
But you could transfer money from your Indian account to overseas account and then invest from that account.
No, but
that's another irony.
No. But how will Indians have an overseas account? A resident Indian cannot have an overseas account.
Resident Indian
Only few
have
countries.
an overseas account.
Only few countries.
Yeah, like for example.
But then again, but again, the authorized dealer is supposed to track that money for you, your banker. What asset do you buy?
So RBI guidelines are there today.
But this doesn't follow the assets.
$250,000 US is permitted per person.
No.
You could transfer that money.
That is for specified assets in which currency is not there. Like you can't do for margin trading. You can't do for many other things.
Right. But you could always transfer this money to your overseas account, let the money be there, and then thereafter, after a period, you could.
I have no clarity on that. If there's a cooling period which is allowed, and then you can trade. But people are
once
not
the money
that.
Goes there, you could trade in any assets. You could buy a property also in that.
No, Abhishek. When you transfer money, your bank will ask you for what the reason you've said.
So that's what I'm saying. RBI guidelines today, till 250,000 rupees is a limit which you can transfer.
Yeah.
But the money must be legitimate in India.
But you have to give a reason. You have to give a reason.
You can give any reason. I want to transfer it from my bank account there.
I have an experience. Let me share experience here. That one of the cases, EMLA has been launched against such a transaction.
PMLA will always come into place for these transactions but PMLA also interestingly, I mean, if you have touched this topic, it is the money laundering aspect which needs to be tested.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So whether it amounts to money laundering or not,
but investigations have started.
Yeah, may have.
Thank you.
Meenuji has a question.
Yes, Dr. Bidu.
Thank you so much for brilliant talk. We were actually trying to understand this. What one of our researchers who had finished his fellowship and was without any money, and he has invested in bitcoins. He invested like 10,000, and I guess 1,000 has become 10 lakhs now. He became 10 lakhs, and so he
must quit now. He must book profit and quit.
Absolutely.
And what happened was, after the budget was announced, it came down to 50% of, there was a 50% crash. So he became like 50 lakhs. Now, what I want to understand is, because even if he has 50 lakhs and he pays his 30% tax on that, now the point of investing, what does this money mean? It's like a hypothetical crorepati or hypothetical lakpati that you own this much money, but you don't know how it can be utilized. And he doesn't have any foreign accounts or anything to transfer it. So he probably is looking at future that probably, he will be able to do something with it. He can't even use it for Swiggy or, things like that. So,
no, but there are ways to trade it off. I mean, there are ways to dispose it off, either in cash or through the banking channels. It will completely depend how he bought it. If he bought through cash, he will have to dispose off in cash. And if he bought through a banking channel, he will have to
bring it back to a bank.
Dispose off through the banking channel. But that's possible.
Get it as a bank account in which he can get his money in rupees.
So
no.
That will completely depend on how he bought those assets.
How he's bought
If he bought by using cash, it has to be disposed of using cash. Of course, cash market works on a very different value and margins. That completely depends on demand and supply. And of course, through banking channels, you will have to go through these exchanges and get your money back to your bank account.
And what you're telling us is that the blockchain technology is the one which is leading to this multiplication of money. Am I right? In my understanding.
Basically, so one is, of course, the blockchain technology. Second is also the mining cost which are involved.
Okay.
But frankly, if you ask me, there is no value. I have not invested even a rupee in this because.
Same here.
So I would not suggest, unless and until government comes out with appropriate regulations and tells me that, you know, you could invest in these currencies. These are backed up. I would want to invest through appropriate banking channels, because what happens if tomorrow the bank, the government comes out with the regulation, and if you see the first draft of the regulation, that very clearly says that, you know, these will be all illegal in the sense that, and you will be given a time frame to sell these off. So we do not know that what will happen. But of course, that initial draft was not a very pragmatic one that will undergo a lot of these changes, but who knows? So I think it's always better not to wait for the draft, get your money back, book profits, and then let's see later when it becomes legitimate.
Okay, but isn't it a very confusing thing? Why should the government get into this when they're not clear on this? And you know, the other thing, like Dr. Meenu said, it's a very fair thing to ask if somebody has earned some profit in this transaction, but can he or she get it into rupees? Where to spend it? I can't keep on boasting I have so much of money, but what to do with that? If I can't buy something out of it, I can convert it into a rupees, which can be useful for me.
You could convert it into rupees. Today also you could convert it into rupees. And the point here is that people have made from 1 to 100. It's not like 90 becoming 100 or 50 becoming 100. People had invested at that point of time when the value is 1, 2, 3, 5, and that is now 100. So, and they have already sold part of their assets. So they have already recovered several times of their initial cost. Now, whatever is there, most of the people, except if you are a recent investor, most of these people who are actually good time, real time players have made several times already of their initial investment. In fact, the initial investment is all taken care of. And what they today have is only part of the profits. But I think I would still suggest that people must try to liquidate these. That would be my suggestion.
Among all of us who are present here, you are speaking on this topic in such a vast knowledge, and you have only not invested in this. So how do you think? How shall we
I will tell you the reason. I will tell you the reason. Because I am a law-abiding citizen.
Exactly.
The law is not very clear whether these are legal or not.
No. Ma'am, how are you going to buy it? That's the question. You know,
exactly.
if you buy in cash, you'll have to dispose it off in cash. That's the key point. Banking channels is going to lead to huge problems that Gurmeet rightly said. Huge
problems.
I would never do it.
I would never do that as well. So I think the answer is that if you have already done that, please correct it today before the regulations come. Book your profit, pay tax, whatever. But I think do the correction today. And in fact, these budget proposals would become effective only from a particular date.
Yeah,
so the tax at 30% becomes applicable from that date. And if you are in a lower income tax group, then please dispose it off as fast as possible.
No. CBDT chairman says retrospective. You already said that. CBDT chairman already said that retrospective. We'll tax you from back date. All these profits.
Yeah.
They're just that I will have to challenge in some court. I've already
That's
challenged
a good one.
Retrospective
I
amendments.
like it.
See, because I'll tell you the reason. Retrospective amendments can happen only in rarest of rare cases. The government cannot come out with retrospective amendments for this and for that. I'm already arguing before several courts, including Supreme Court and your Punjab and Haryana High Court, on retrospective amendments of several things. Now, in some cases, what has happened is, interestingly, subsequent to the Supreme Court decision, there are retrospective amendments, and we had seen what had happened in Vodafone. And what is happening, and that's the problem of the government. If they don't understand on certain things, or they lose in Supreme Court on certain things, they come out with retrospective amendment.
That's correct.
Without realizing that we will challenge that also, and they will lose then also. So I think that will completely depend, on the stakes a person has, but that can be challenged actually.
Abhishek, the last little bit, what happens to these 6 exchanges who are advertising like mad? You have WazirX, you have NDCX, ZepPay, so on and so on. What happens to them?
See, some of them have already gone out of the country. I would not name. Some of them are my clients. And the others are sitting in the North Block. Even as we conduct a webinar here, they're sitting in the North Block to get this resolved in some way so that they operate from India. Because India is a big market. And they also know that if this somehow becomes operative and regulated in India, the market is huge.
Thank you. Over to President.
You can follow me on LinkedIn, Twitter, and on my YouTube channel.
YouTube, yeah.
Yeah. So I keep posting these videos. In fact, I would just take appropriate permissions to edit this video and put on my YouTube channel as well. That gives a lot of clarity and understanding to a lot of people, and it helps. So the time invested helps a lot of other people as well.
Excellent. Over to President.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now I would like to request our past President, Sardar Manmohan Singh Ji, to kindly convey vote of thanks to our guest speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Abhishek Rastogi, for having taken out this time. I wish I could give you a fantastic expression of gratitude, but we have run out of time so acutely that I would keep it brief. But why it has happened is because you have so painstakingly explained this thing, you know. I was wondering that you took a great challenge by accepting this speech, because there's something, you have explained something so unexplainable, something so predictably unpredictable. And I think hats off to you to have chosen or to have accepted to speak on this point, because there are so many variations, so many different outlooks on this issue. That is really, but nevertheless, I think we all, to a great extent, stand enlightened, because here there is a hard-earned money. Anybody who's venturing into something, you know, we can very proudly say that if you would have been part of our club's address today evening, one would have learned far more than one would have learned from NDTV's advertisements, you know, or any other source of information. May I, on behalf of our club, profusely thank you so much for having given us your time, your wisdom, your intellect, and your idea. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. I just want to share one thing.
Yes,
on that
sir.
Simplicity. I was arguing one matter before Justice Chandrachud in Supreme Court, and that matter continued for 3 weeks.
Wow.
I was the junior most person arguing for the petitioners, because Mr. Harish Salve, Mukul Rodgi sir, Chidambaram sir, all top people were there to argue that matter. And it's a fantastic argument which happened. Only towards the end, I got 50. So Justice Chandrachud said that, you know, these guys have argued, Mr. Rastogi, do you really want to argue? I said, just give me 15 minutes, 15 minutes. And he gave me 15 minutes only at the fag end of it. And the entire issue, which was argued for several days, I had put a very brief note of 5 pages and explained that to him in 10 minutes. And he said, you have explained that in so simple words, with so many examples in the simplest form, that the issue is completely clear now to us. So I think sometimes how I argue is to, you know, keep all of these thoughts and articulation so simple so that, you know, the other person understands that. And I think that's very, very relevant. So thank you for that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I just mentioned, that it's not a monopoly of few people who have made a name. It is a trust. It is the effort of the young people to make a mark, to take more pains into explaining, and that's what you have done with us. And we are indeed extremely grateful to you.
And Manmohanji, this is very much visible today during his dispensation. Amazing.
Absolutely, absolutely. We are indeed grateful.
So I think, Manmohanji, if you permit me half a second, he has a date with CII also.
Sure. So
both of us are past chairman of CII.
On that note, I must say, you know, we must congratulate Vivek, because another year or so, he'll be the chairman of CII, and then we will have the member of our club, or sixth member of our club, taking the mantle of CII chairmanship. So proud of our own club.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Abhishek, we'll have another opportunity to have you there with us.
Anytime. Anytime.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Thank you. Pleasure was all mine.
Thank you.
So much, gentlemen.
Bye-bye.
And ladies.